Okay, so in Conker's Bad Fur Day, a thing that's calling my attention right now is the great mighty Pooh. When he dies, he cries out, he shouts out, right? And his mouth, we see his mouth swirling downwards into the hole. And, at some point his mouth becomes invisible. And we are left with a question. I'm left with a question. Is his mouth being fused, symbolically speaking, right? Is the hole and his mouth becoming one same thing? So another way of saying that is the scream emanating from his mouth somehow, at the same time, the noise that the hole is making?
Beautiful flagginess. Oh, I'm going. Oh, no.
Now that's what I call a bowel movement.
Are we hearing the hole itself make a scream of some kind, or is the scream synonymous somehow with maybe the sounds of the flushing toilet or something like that? Okay, a thing that makes me think that is because we then sort of proceed to jump into that hole. We don't really jump into that hole particularly, but we use that hole as an entry point to then enter into the drainage system and blah blah. So, given all that, there is this way how entering into the mouth of someone, I think, is important in this game at some level. For instance, say the big boiler boss has got a bunch of imps living inside of itself, but they enter through the mouth. So the mouth of the boiler, this open and closing plaque, this plate sort of door, is the entry point for the imps to come in. There is a thing I forgot to say about the great mighty Pooh sinking into that hole. And it is that hole is a blockage, right? We're told this in several ways. It is a blockage of the turd itself, which blocks the hole. For instance, the great mighty Pooh himself says, how have you been able to defeat my beautiful clagginess? So there is himself. He is proud, in a way, of being a huge blockage for this hole, right, for this drain. He is undrainable. He is unblockable. I think he has a certain pride in that, and is surprised that Conker, such a tiny little being, is able to unblock him, a huge being, and, send him down into the hole. So him going down into the hole is an unblocking, in that sense, of something that was blocked. And something else we could say about that, I think, is that then him showing us his mouth as he descends down. My feeling is that then his mouth, right, is this big open hole itself going, ah, and we see this hole, the mouth, kind of fade away into the blackness of the hole itself. So something to say in order to continue would be, it feels then that a blockage, the blockage of himself, the big turd that blocks the hole is, in a way, also symbolically perhaps, the blockage of a mouth that becomes this open hole. The unblocked hole that you can walk through was blocked before, but now you can walk into it. I feel that there is, for example, another scene in this game where you flush away some water in one of the outer regions, and it flushes some enemies down into itself, like a drain, literally. And when it has finished draining, you hear like a burp, like a human, like a person sort of burping, as if the hole itself here, the drain, has devoured these beings and is itself, therefore, some sort of a mouth. So that a mouth and a drain, or a hole of this kind into which one falls or is sucked into, are the same sort of thing, right? And therefore it kind of equates, I think, uncorking, unblocking a drain, right, that had been blocked or buttoned up. When you unblock it and suddenly all the contents of whatever is inside of it flush down into it, there is a feeling that maybe the sound that comes out of that is a mouth sound. It's the sound of a mouth, of a person making a sound with its mouth. And therefore, perhaps, again, a person whose mouth is being drained into, so that you are the drain. You are the drain as the mouth. The mouth is the drain, or something like that. So to continue this exploration, then, I would say that a few things intrigue me about this. One is this previous video I made, in which I explored that the drain, the mighty poo drain, once you enter it, leads you to the dinosaur world. And as I said, it sounds as if the sounds of the dinosaur roaring, making a sound, are faded into by the sounds of the drain itself, in this case of the drain's metal structure. So the metal structure grinding and making a sound seem to come first, and then lead us to this sound of the dinosaur. So the dinosaur, of course, being something that makes a sound with its mouth. So a mouth sound seems to be at the other side of the drain. In fact, indeed, once we enter through the drain and into the dinosaur world, a thing that we find down there, a sort of noteworthy element, is this big dinosaur boss, so to speak, this big dragon effigy that is a open mouth that we can walk into as well. So, in a way, to continue from there, I would say that the mouth, then, is a place you can walk into, and also perhaps represents something that it is sort of blocked a little bit, or difficult to get in or out of, in a way. I can think also, okay, here are a few examples. One is the cogs are placed, onto the other cogs. And by that process, the mouth is not only inserted, not only inserted into the other cog, so to speak, but the mouth is blocked. It blocks the mouth. You can hear the cogs trying to make a sound, but it is muffled because it is blocked. Now, I know this is a graphic kind of scene, but I mean to describe it more in the sense of there is a muffling of the mouth, so to speak. So, as you heard there, that's a clip where you can see the sound sort of grows muffled, right? As if there's a sock in the mouth, as if something's stuck in the mouth, closer to the end of the clip. But I think it does show that there is a blockage, or a notion of blockage there, right? That partly, in that scene, partly what's happening is a blockage is happening, but it's happening through the fact of something entering into the mouth of another thing. Now, so where to go from there? A thing comes into my mind here, which is that it's not just a thing entering into another thing, it's a being. It's a person, one of the cogs, entering into another person. Now, I want to explore further. The fire imps, as I said, also have this notion of the fire imps, who are people, beings, enter into the mouth of the boiler, who, has a mouth, so is a person as well. We have a person, therefore, entering into another person. And Conker himself, as I said, seems to enter perhaps symbolically into the mouth of the great mighty Pooh through the fact that, he is jumping into that hole, so to speak. It's also, he enters into the mouth of that dragon, explicitly speaking. So there is an idea of people entering into other people's mouths, and this being in some way maybe connected to the notion of blockage and unblockage. Even the great Panther King, as I said as well in one of the previous videos, he has the alien inside of him, and this alien prevents him from breathing. So his mouth is blocked, not just his mouth, but his whole sort of breathing apparatus, his throat, everything like that is blocked through the actions of another person, in this case an alien. So another being is inside of him. And to continue this, I would say, well, again, look at those themes from the previous video I made on breathing, the sensitive topics one, where Frankie, for example, uses the rope around his neck. So there is an intention of limiting breathing in some way. And even his friends, so to speak, the paint pot and those other guys, are blocked as well. They enter also into a phase of blocking. The brush is stuck into the mouth of the paint pot. So the paint pot's mouth, his mouth is the pot of paint itself, and the brush is stuck inside there. So a person, the paintbrush, is stuck inside the mouth of another person, the paint pot.
What are you doing? Get off me! So, what exactly did you have in mind? Well, there!
And this causes a blockage. You can hear that the paint pot can't speak properly because his mouth is filled with another being, another person, in this case the paint brush, so to speak. It's hard to know where to go from here, but one thing I kind of want to suggest is the Panther King gets substituted for the alien. You could more or less say, right? You're expecting to fight the Panther King, instead you find the alien. It's as if the alien were, I don't know, wearing a costume shaped like the Panther King, and then when the alien comes out, it's as if it's the real Panther King. The real Panther King, what was inside was an alien. At least that's a feeling I get very vaguely. What follows from this maybe is an exploration we could make of the idea maybe of replacing a person with another person, or a person substituting for another in some way. For example, I have already mentioned the imps inside the boiler are the boiler, in a sense. It's almost like the boiler doesn't exist without the imps inside controlling the boiler, right? So they are inside and are almost kind of like essential for the functioning, something like that. Another example maybe we could jump to is I think obviously the little girl and the sort of puppeteering teddy bear. The big bear guy is like a puppeteer. So in a sense, he is essential for the functioning of the little girl. The little girl also, though, to be fair, says that she is the brains and he is the brawn. So you could also say that she is controlling this big bear. We could also look at it that way, but even if we look at it that way, there is still the idea of a sort of inseparability where one person is controlling the behavior of the other, or is controlling the other in some way, and perhaps that is a form that we could look at in this game, so to speak. And another example of this, I think. Right, yeah, what I wanted to say maybe doesn't fit into this category, but I kind of maybe want to include it here. Conker enters into this big dinosaur head skeleton statue, and inside there finds a dead man. This dead man is wearing some identifying clothes, his identity, right? As a tribal member in this case, right? So Conker wears this identity, steps out of the dragon head, and all of the villagers suddenly see him and recognize in him this identity, and furthermore, perhaps this idea that he is a special person because he has walked out of the dragon head and therefore maybe must represent the dragon head in some form. Now, why do I think this? Because they had been worshipping the dragon head before. They perform sacrifices, ritual sacrifices for the dragon head. The dragon head literally asks for sacrifices. I think he says, "Bring me sacrifices," or something.
I am pleased with your offering.
So it is a god that you sacrifice people to, right?
That's quite comfy, this. Uh-oh. Oh, not these guys again. Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, that's right. I know. Yeah. Okay, those right.
So, a feeling I get, what I would like to argue is that the villagers praise Conker in the same way that they had been praising the dragon head before. It feels as if Conker becomes almost like a substitution for the dragon head. You could even say, like, you know, the dragon head brought to life or incarnated in a person in this, like, religious kind of sense, right? And that they praise or worship Conker because he has emerged from the dragon's mouth, you know, possibly as a representative of the dragon, and wearing the attire of a villager, of one of them. Anyway, so a bunch of feelings like this that I get